New pattern on the Bitcoin daily chart, and it is not the pattern that you see here on the screen. It is not that pattern. It's a new one. And it plays into this question that I want to explore in this video when we start zooming out on Bitcoin. Could it be this easy? And that's probably one of the most scary crypto questions to ask right now. And this is what I want to discuss as we break down the new pattern on the Bitcoin daily chart. So hit the subscribe. If you're not a subscriber, hit the like button on the way in. Your support means a ton, and let's just jump into the video. So I want to start. This is what we've been tracking, this falling pattern of higher high or lower highs and lower lows on this Bitcoin chart. But I want to actually start with some context. What's really been fun right now in particular is all of the different content that I'm seeing in relation to answering the question, where are we in this cycle? Are we on track? Are we early? Should the bull market have started by now? And here's one piece of data to give you an example of what I mean. If we look at prior Bitcoin halvings and compare this cycle to the last, we're currently at end of September 2020 period. So On-Chain College over here saying, if we look at a Bitcoin zoomed out chart, we are currently like right around here. And obviously, when we've been zooming out on these charts, we've been discussing something very similar, right? In terms of where we are post-Bitcoin halving, where we are in the Bitcoin cycles, and then it continues. Here's another one, moving right along in the 2023, but 1 month behind. Could it really be just this simple for Bitcoin? That is one of the scariest crypto questions to ask. And what I mean by that is, when I sit here and I do these videos and I look at the data, even this very video that I'm talking about right now, and I see how nicely things are lining up, it does seem so easy. And that's like my biggest concern. The consistency of these cycles. The very fact that it seems so consistent, that it seems so on point from a timeline perspective, kind of makes me nervous, kind of makes me feel like it's not going to happen. And so this is probably why right now, and especially as we go into the next few weeks, I think yesterday's video we talked about the next 3 to 11 weeks is a key window for the altcoin season to begin. I'm really starting to really track this data, the timeline data, the timeframe data. And then we continue. Honestly, we're not even close. And you can just see this is a GMI Bitcoin cycle top finder. Not exactly sure how you can see the black line. That's like the top finder. We're not even close in terms of this cycle. It does look like it's just getting started. And we can go to a Bitcoin monthly chart and we can even get a sense of that. I'm not sure of the data that's being used on this chart, but it looks like some type of momentum data. And if we look at the momentum oscillator on the monthly Bitcoin chart, check it out. We've talked about this before. Here's Bitcoin overbought slightly right before the Bitcoin halving, but you notice after the Bitcoin halving, we've not had this moment of parabolic bull market as we've had in previous cycles. Every cycle so far, we've not been there, right? So we're not even close to the Bitcoin cycle top. And then here we are as we pivot and we start looking at the Bitcoin daily chart, this new pattern. I want to pivot into that right now. I saw this from Marty Party over here on X. Nothing has changed since I posted this July 8th. We're perfectly where we're supposed to be. And I notice he has this kind of big, and it looks like a daily chart, this big symmetrical triangle. And I was like, you know what? I didn't really spot that. So shout out to Marty Party for putting this out there, because it actually is really cool, interesting data. And what gets even crazier is when we look at this purple line, something that we talked about in yesterday's video, it gets even crazier. So let me kind of plot what he put on the chart. And it's basically like this symmetrical triangle. So a lower trend line we can kind of add, and I'm going to add it in yellow, and you can just see this formation, right? So we've had in blue this falling channel that we've been talking about, and it's still there. That is still very much a pattern that I'm tracking. But I think this is a really interesting pattern here as well, because this is kind of this is kind of a setup, I guess you could say. We have the lower highs, and now we do have higher lows in terms of this pattern starting to set up. So if we're looking at the blue falling pattern, yes, there's the case we're putting in another swing low here. But if we look at this new symmetrical triangle data, there's a case that lower trend line could act as kind of the support for a higher low for Bitcoin, maybe in like the $55,000, $56,000 range if Bitcoin's not going to break out yet. But what became, I think, even more interesting to me was just the timing of this symmetrical triangle. And then I'm actually going to show you on the zoomed out how this gets even crazier from the macro patterns that we have on this chart. But going back to the daily, look at this purple line. This purple line, I measured it. It's around 60% to the apex. So here's a symmetrical triangle. That purple line is around 60% to the apex of the triangle. To give you a sense, the purple line, if you didn't see in yesterday's video, is basically, if we go to the Bitcoin dominance chart, it's the previous cycles. It's the same time frame where Bitcoin dominance basically started falling. That's that parabolic altcoin season, crypto bull run everybody's waiting for, right? So 2 cycles ago, it was around just 220 some days after the Bitcoin halving, it started falling. Last cycle, 217 days or so. And then I just kind of did an average or around the same amount of time, 200 days or so. And that's where we get that purple line. We're looking for Bitcoin dominance to start falling, altcoin season to pop off, get crazy. Now we go back to this chart. Right at that 60% area is that line. And this could mean Bitcoin dominance could start falling, but Bitcoin can be breaking out. This is important to me because if we go look at Bulkowski, the rules of a symmetrical triangle, and by the way, Bulkowski, thepatternSite.com, this is where I've learned most of my technical analysis that I do on this YouTube channel. It is just free information. There's so much good information. But look what he says about a symmetrical triangle. Upward 60% of the time and 74% of the way to the triangle apex. Now, I want to mention, if we go look at the pattern itself, obviously that purple line we're saying is around 60% to the apex, not 74. But even still, we can really start looking for a breakout in this general area. So I thought that was interesting to me, as this purple line kind of lines up with previous cycles and really that parabolic move that we're looking for in crypto. So time frame wise, this symmetrical triangle, just so on point. And I like symmetrical triangles. I'd say they're probably my favorite pattern. I like them because when we start getting actual structure that forms a symmetrical triangle, we do have a time frame at that moment, right? So this apex area being the time frame. And to me, that's something that is incredibly important. Like, we have something like a falling pattern. It's kind of like, man, we're just in this falling pattern. How long are we going to be in this pattern for? We have a time frame to look at when it comes to the symmetrical triangle, which is awesome. So moving beyond that, what becomes even more crazy to me as I look at this pattern is this. We go to, and this plays into that question, is it really this easy? Here's that breakout area, right? So we're looking at around November 2024. It could happen sooner, it could happen later. It doesn't have to be up, by the way. We're going to discuss that in just a moment. But if we go to the Bitcoin weekly chart, check this out. That purple line there, right? And the patterns that are within this, this current consolidation, this gives time for the consolidation. And in that regard, it gives time for this inverse head and shoulders, the right shoulder setup for just such a good breakout. And this plays into that question. Is it really this simple? And we look at last cycle. There was a macro pattern set up for around the same time last cycle for a breakout. There's that purple line. Here's Bitcoin halving. It was a massive symmetrical triangle, like this huge multi-year symmetrical triangle. Right now, it's a multi-year head and shoulders, inverse head and shoulders. You go to the 2 cycles ago, all the way back here, this setup going into 2013-14 bear market. Check it out. Inverse head and shoulders setup with, from a time frame perspective, very similar breakouts. This is the consistency, again, is like, could it be that simple? And here we are right now. So we have the macro setup that we see, and then we have the zoomed in consolidation potentially playing out to that macro breakout. And so this is really where all of the technical analysis comes together. And in regards to this pattern, the symmetrical triangle, I wanted to mention, if we look at Bulkowski, he does talk about these breakouts, right, that occur. You can see this symmetrical triangle he has here breaking down, a downward breakout, but then a pullback right around the apex area. This is a busted pattern. So that's something I just want to keep in mind as we're doing this analysis. Bitcoin could fall below the yellow line. Maybe we actually hit this blue line, the falling channel, right? So we're falling below the symmetrical triangle, yellow line. We're bouncing, and then we're pulling back into the triangle, and we could still have a very bullish, busted symmetrical triangle in play for the breakout. And that's something I just want to keep in mind on the shorter term in case Bitcoin does fall below that yellow line. And we're talking about below $55,000 or so is where that is. So as we do the shorter term technical analysis, I've been doing a lot of macro zoomed out videos, but you can just see the shorter term technical analysis plays into the macro. But as we're doing and we're tracking the shorter term price action of Bitcoin, especially around this resistance at these moving averages, who knows what Bitcoin's going to do next, up or down. I think it's a good idea just to anticipate certain scenarios. So even falling below that yellow trend line is 100% in play, but that's just something that we're going to have to track. So I wanted just to do this video because I'm always looking to integrate more data, new structure, new patterns, anything we can that play into the Bitcoin cycles and where we are in this cycle. And I just really thought this was an interesting pattern that plays into the current consolidation of Bitcoin, not only on the short term that you see here, but also on the macro, on the zoomed out. So these are my thoughts today as we continue to track these crypto markets. Let me know what you all think about this. Let me know how you're doing out there. I appreciate you. If you're not a subscriber, please subscribe, turn those notifications on. I'll see you in the next video. God bless.